If you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now, along with the bell icon so you can be notified when a new video drops. And if you're already subscribed, check and make sure that YouTube hasn't tried to unsubscribe you. Seems every week I get a few people telling me that they were unsubscribed without their permission. And of course, be sure to give the video a like. The white supremacists hate that. Now, that said, white supremacy is highly reliant upon a systematic strategy of deception to convince you of something that isn't actually true. White supremacy is always trying to bluff its way past people, trying to pull the wool over their eyes, con them, trying to figure out how do we get over on them today or this hour. And of course, when it comes to the biannual federal elections, that's no different. The political parties represent a state-sanctioned duopoly. You don't really have a choice on election day. If you're black, you're supposed to already know that. You don't have a choice. The only thing that they give you an option to do is you can have white supremacist flavor A or white supremacist flavor B, but you don't get to actually have black empowerment. That's not on the ballot. But what's happened is the black grassroots being led by the black media, we've decided to call an audible on this one. This election, we're making it very clear. Black empowerment's going to be on the ballot. Reparations are going to be on the ballot. So what's happened is the white media is trying to give the false impression that, oh, there's some sort of horse race going on. And well, we're not talking about that reparations stuff. And what's really important is Trump and COVID-19. Yeah, because it's going to be anything but black empowerment. See, the biggest problem going on, the biggest threat facing the country is not China. The biggest threat facing the country is not COVID-19. These are all minor issues. The biggest threat to the country is the threat to white supremacy, and that is the black grassroots, us, the former slaves of this nation, having our power. That's the real threat. COVID-19 is nothing more than a glittering distraction to get us talking about something else, because as long as we're talking about whether or not your business can or cannot reopen, as long as we're having meaningless debates about the schools reopening, about how long until a vaccine, etc., what we're not talking about is changing the essential structure of the society by making it where the people who were supposed to be relegated to a permanent underclass finally have their proper place in society. That is a real threat. COVID-19 is just a state-sanctioned distraction, which they're pushing to the hilt because it serves their purpose. Hopefully, if we don't talk about black empowerment, hopefully it will not be a threat anymore. We can just let it wither on the vine, except it's not withering. Here we are, it's already August. The doggone conventions are only in a few weeks, and Joe Biden still hasn't figured out who the hell his running mate's going to be. Now, what does that tell you? What it tells me is two things. First of all, what it means is when you pick a vice presidential candidate, the idea behind the VP pick is they're supposed to help you get some influence in particular states. That's the reason why you pick a particular VP. Because hopefully, if you're Barack Obama and you need a white guy to get out there for you to calm down the casual racist, read white moderates. So when they see this biracial guy on television with his black wife and his black children, they get scared and going, oh my God, they're multiplying. We don't want any black people in the White House. You can show, well, there's going to be this white guy here, so don't worry. We're going to make sure that he has a white handler. And this white handler is a guy with absolutely solid credentials as a white supremacist. Joe Biden's been a feckless anti-black racist his entire life, so that's meant to calm down middle America, flyover country, and it worked. But now you got old Jim Crow Joe Biden, who is seeing the weight of the last 40 years of his worthless life bearing down on him, and instead of his record being a balloon that raises him, instead it's nothing more than a 10-ton anvil weighing him down. He's having to run from his record. All of a sudden, he doesn't know who the hell wrote Biden's law, the 94 crime bill. He doesn't know who the hell wrote it. It was somebody else. Why? He was off getting drunk somewhere. And he's trying to figure out who's going to be my running mate. Somebody who hopefully can take some of the stink off of me. Hey, I know. I'll go ahead and get me some person of color. You know, one of these vetted, hand-picked Negroes who has already spent their entire lives, such as they are, being tools of white supremacy. We'll go ahead and get one of these safe Negroes, preferably female, because we know there's too many black men who have already broken bad, and we're gonna do a Hail Mary and Hopefully, there'll be some black women who we can con with the sister girl routine. Yes, they keep running the same plays over and over and over again because as the black media has shaken the political landscape to its very foundations by getting the black grassroots mobilized, we're leaving them with no good options because who the hell are they going to pick? Oh, I'm sure that under the circumstances, Jim Crow Joe would love to be able to say, Donald Trump is talking about law and order. Why, I wrote the 94 crime bill. I was tough on these niggers long before Donald Trump, don't you know? Why, I wanted to do everything. The only thing they wouldn't let me write was to hang these niggers for jaywalking. That's what Joe Biden wants to say, but he can't. And when you look at the tools that the Democrats have elevated, it's all been a bunch of black people who have been helping white supremacy weaponize the so-called justice system against us. You got people like Val Demings. I posted yesterday about how you got MSNBC trying to paint her out as being some sort of acceptable VP pick. Yeah, she was a cop. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to get out ahead of what they know the predictable criticism is going to be of her. Hey, you can't be running around as a person with a badge or a person who was a prosecutor and think that you're going to be an acceptable pick to govern the country. That's a dirty word now. These are bad things. These things hurt you now. So you got the white media trying to burnish the laurels. Well, you can't say that all cops are bad. Didn't say all of them are bad, just said most of them are. You can't say that all prosecutors are bad. Actually, we can. Because you got a situation where prosecutors have success rates, conviction rates in the 90+ percentile. You cannot have that unless you got a system that's overwhelmingly lopsided in your favor. Nobody has a 90+% success rate of anything except for these guys. So what does that tell you? So no, Val Demings, she thinks she's going to run from her record, and the white media thinks they're going to run interference for her and give her cover. Ain't going to work. And Kamala Harris, well, you can tell that the worm is turned because you happen to have certain Democratic Party insiders who are letting Joe Biden know, hey, you don't really want to be picking Kamala Harris as your vice presidential candidate. See, Joe Biden would love to be able to try to appeal to the casual racist, read white moderates with the, see, we got ourselves some people who have a career, track record of locking up these niggers, so Donald Trump can't claim to be the only tough on niggers candidate. I mean, the only law and order candidate. Why, look at Kamala Harris. Man, she's put more black people in prison than Bull Connor. That's what they would love to have. So they can try to get around this whole idea, because they look at the uprising. The Democrats look at the uprising as being a problem. Democrats have never, ever been in favor of black people getting what we're supposed to have. They have always been there as controlled opposition. Hey, you have a phony baloney pretend advocate. You can go to them and tell them we need laws, we need enforcement, we need punishment for the people abusing and attacking us, and they will give a sympathetic, you're right, and then they'll go right back to what they were doing and ignore it. And while you waste all your time trying to get the left arm of white supremacy to actually do what you want, they can let the right arm of white supremacy continue to bludgeon and beat you to death. That's what the goal is. The goal is that you sit on your hands and do nothing while this phony baloney pretend advocate, this pretend spokes group for you, they're going to be speaking for you, but they never say anything. They never do anything. Not for you, they don't. And that's the goal until the black media said, hey, it's time to abandon that garbage. Time to go for self. And what a surprise. It's yielded results. But the white media is trying to figure out how do they put the right spin on what's going on. They would love to have Kamala Harris because they know that she is actually an Asian American advocate, but a lot of the black sororities and such who don't really identify with black people, many of them overrun with these boule and links and immigrants and such who have as much contempt for black people as the worst of the alt-right. They just have nothing but a bottomless well of contempt for, as far as they're concerned. The black people of this society are nothing more than cannon fodder, if not stepping stones to what they want. What we're making it clear is no, forget it. We're not doormats. So Kamala Harris, the real problem here that the white media doesn't want to have to talk about is that while they would love to have Kamala Harris as the VP pick. Don't let them sit here and fool you with this garbage about, the cover story is that the Democratic insiders are saying that Kamala Harris was she was too critical of Joe Biden during the primaries last year. See, that was the problem. She was too critical of Joe Biden. No, the problem that they had with her was not that she was critical of Joe Biden. Otherwise, why in the world weren't they raising a stink about Obama choosing Biden as his VP? So the problem wasn't that. The problem happens to be that Kamala Harris, as much as they would look at her and go, she's going to be politically reliable, we don't have to bet on her ever deciding to upset the apple cart and say certain things that would not be advantageous to white supremacy. We ain't got to worry about her deciding that she wants to be president in 8 years or so, or less than that, because Joe Biden, clearly the boy ain't in the best of health. So we don't have to be worried about her breaking bad on us. That's not an issue. They're not worried about that at all. She's shown her credentials as a white supremacist tool. She's rock solid in that regard. Her hatred of black people in this country, undeniable, unshakable, unquestionable. No, what the real problem is that Kamala Harris is damaged goods. Of all of the women of color in the field, she may have the highest profile, but she's also got the highest liabilities too. That is all due to the black grassroots. I'm proud to say that I began the steady drumbeat against her almost 3 years ago, September 2017, with the deadly deception of Kamala Harris. Now, that video may or may not necessarily be available on YouTube anymore. It was on a prior channel. It was one of the videos that got the channel shut down, but that's okay. I decided to do an even longer, more in-depth video profile of her that you can see on this YouTube channel, The Rise and Fall of Kamala Harris. It covers all the same information as the deadly deception, but it also includes a lot of new stuff, a lot of additional information, I should say, that wasn't in deadly deception. So it's worth the reviewing if you haven't already seen it. But I understood the necessity that as soon as this woman made it clear that she wanted to be senator, we got to start immediately educating black people about who she is, because it was obvious the white media was trying to elevate this woman. You can tell when the white media is trying to figure out how to make somebody into a thing, trying to figure out how do we promote this person? How do we make them into the next tool in waiting? And with Kamala Harris, it was blatantly obvious what they were doing. The white media was grooming her to be the heir apparent to Barack Obama. That's what they were doing. They were grooming her to be the next mulatto, biracial, ethnically ambiguous tool that hopefully would keep black folks on the treadmill. She could do the sister girl thing, and she could do all of these black tools, whether they be black police chiefs, black mayors, black prosecutors. Do you think that there's a single day that's gone by that I have not been reminded that I'm black? I live in this community. I have seen racism. Oh, in my job, I've seen it. They sound like every white liberal you've ever seen, except white liberals don't get to say, do you think I don't know what it means to be black? Though some of them, like Joe Biden, would tell you that if you don't vote for him, you ain't black, because he had Simone Mammy Sanders feed him that line of guff. See, this is what happens when you decide that you're going to fill your staff with a whole bunch of suck-ups and yes men and yes women. This is the kind of stupidity that you get. These bootlicking Negroes, they have no problem with you condescending and talking down to them. And since, of course, in the mind of the casual racist, that is the white moderates or the white leftists, they see black people as a group as being just one big monolith, one big nigger, as Tariq likes to say. And that being the case, they have no problem deciding, heck, if I got Simone Mammy Sanders here telling me that she thinks it's cute when I talk down to her, and so does Corinne Jean-Pierre, whatever the hell her name is, she thinks it's cute too, and we have Jonathan Capehart, and these guys, why, if they say that it's okay, that means all black people think it's okay. Besides, they told me to just ignore all the tons, the absolute sea of black people, this ocean of black people who are telling us all the time, you better put some respect on our names. And you ain't going to talk to us just any old kind of way. Oh, well, I've got my hand-picked black staffers here, and if they say it's okay, then it goes without saying. Why it doesn't even bear thinking about that. All these Negroes are fine with it too, because I got my hand-picked Negroes on the payroll who said it's okay. And what happened was, of course, he shot himself in the foot. Now, you better believe the white media, all of this talking about you don't want Kamala Harris, what it really comes down to is she's a political liability. Joe Biden is already in big trouble. I showed you guys last week how CNN itself was forced to have to come up with the admission that Joe Biden's support among black voters, particularly young black voters, is lower than Hillary Clinton's was at this time in her campaign. So while you have the white media and the left arm of white supremacy, the Democrats, trying to put forward this me worry front that they're doing, this phony baloney ploy of, oh, we're not concerned at all. Why? We got the wind at our backs. We're going to have this presidential election in a walk. While they're busy doing that, what they're also doing is they're trying to figure out how to keep their knees from knocking. That's part of the reason why Joe Biden is clearly so discombobulated. The dude can't even form a coherent sentence. His brain, such as it is, melted when he realized, oh my God, all my sins of the last 50 years are now coming back to haunt me at the worst possible time. And nobody and nothing is helping him to be able to stop the political bleeding. Oh, he got Barack Obama out there, the favorite tap dancing Negro. That didn't work. Got Bill Clinton out there. Wasn't he supposed to be the first black president? I think that's what Toni Morrison, wasn't it Toni Morrison who said that about him? Yeah, they're playing all the golden oldies. They're trotting out all the tools. And the reason for that happens to be Donald Trump, while he may be politically obnoxious, he's not a real problem. The problem happens to be anything that threatens the guaranteed system of goodies, giveaways, and guarantees that is the glue that holds together white supremacy. White supremacy is held together by a promise that it made to those classified as white. And that promise is there is a glass ceiling for black people, which is also the glass floor for you. You will never be allowed to fall beneath that glass floor. And black people as a group, will never be allowed to rise above it. And because of that, you will always be able to have the fat of the land, but you also have the psychic benefits of knowing that there's a permanent underclass who, no matter how bad things are for you, you'll have the psychological comfort of knowing there's an entire group of people for whom it's far, far worse because it's been engineered to be that way. You will be sheltered and protected and insulated from having to compete economically, from having to compete politically, from having to compete socially for anything. Don't worry about jobs and such. Those are reserved for you, as are business loans and housing loans and such. That's reserved for you. And don't worry about if you want to go into political office. The game's going to be rigged so that black people are completely and thoroughly politically corralled. The Republicans do the dirty work of corralling the black vote, and the Democrats let them. They work hand in hand to make sure the black vote is contained. That way you'll have a few black representatives, but not too many, not enough where politically it's going to upset the apple cart. So you're going to have guaranteed political office for yourselves, and that way you get to shape policy however you see fit. And you're going to have social guarantees that makes it where wherever you go, you're going to be treated a certain way, and no one's going to have the ability to tell you anything. You see, the whole thing about Amy Cooper, what really got her was not so much that somebody was telling her put her mangy mutt on a leash. What got her was that a black person was doing it. That's what got her. When she saw this black man telling her to do that, that's what set her off. Because what was happening was he was essentially exercising control and power over her. And as a white person, that's supposed to be part of the social guarantee. There's a social guarantee that white supremacy is made. That as a white person, no black person has any sort of control over her. No black person can exercise control over her under any circumstances, at any time, in any place. And regardless of what that Cooper clown chose to do, I'm talking about the Birdman, no matter what it was that he chose to do, the point of the matter is, I'm talking about Amy Cooper, what set her off. And you see what happens is white supremacy requires, of a necessity, those who are the beneficiaries of white supremacy require constant reassurance that the con is still on. They require constant reassurance that even though the house of cards is made out of doilies and tissue paper, and there's that not even a breeze is going to come along to destabilize it. They know that this con should have collapsed a long time ago and would have if other generations had done their part. But the dominant society is excruciatingly aware. They live in daily terror of this whole thing coming down, because they know that it's going to sooner or later. So since they live in terror of that, every minute of every day, they have to be reassured that white supremacy is going to stand at least for a little bit more. Reassure us, reassure us. We need constant reassurance, daily reassurance. There cannot be a 24-hour period that goes by without them being reassured. And if they even look at the horizon and see something that looks like it could be a threat to their dominance and guarantees, if they see Black empowerment on the horizon, they lose it. Any little thing sends them into hysterics. Any little thing makes them lose their minds. Joe Biden, seems he's literally lost what passed for his mind. Yeah, when he saw the rising tide of Black empowerment that was going to hold him to account, Black people exercising power over him to punish him politically, he knows that he loses this election. It's undeniable who it was who handed him this L. And the white media knows it too. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it into, well, he's going to win, but if he doesn't, it's probably because of voter suppression and this. Get off of it. While it is true that voter suppression is a thing, it's also true that if Black people for real wanted to turn out, what were the Republicans not trying to jam Black voters up in 2008? You had lawsuits where the Republicans were found out for that, trying to do voter caging in North Carolina and in Florida and other places. They didn't stop because Obama was running, but what happened was because Black people over time had convinced themselves that maybe this Obama guy with a lot of prodding could be made to do the right thing. Fools Black people were for believing that. But because Black people actually thought, let's give this guy a chance, he got unprecedented support that overwhelmed any and all attempts to suppress the Black vote. So if Black people, and then it happened again in 2012. So if Black people for real wanted to vote, I mean, talking about Black folks deciding we're getting out there no matter what, ain't a damn thing that the GOP can do to stop it. So if Black people are not turning out to vote, if the Black vote seems to be a little iffy this election cycle, what that means is Black folks who are saying, you know what, I think we'll give this one a pass. I think we're going to go ahead and just sit this one out. Hey, man, we're cool over here. We ain't feeling no kind of anxiety or any sort of pressure to turn out and vote because ain't a damn thing to vote for. And that alone would be crazy making enough for the white political establishment. That alone would be anxiety inducing enough. That alone would be nerve wracking enough for the white powers that be on the political left. But the big problem that they're having right now is what this means for Black people when it comes to how we intend to get what we want. Because we made it very clear, a group of people who have been fighting for their empowerment this long, just because they abandoned the ballot box, that doesn't mean they're going to stop. But how do groups of people obtain power outside the ballot box? Ain't but one other way. And they have seen this summer how that's going to manifest itself. So they understand this is not just a fluke. This ain't just some one-off. This is going to be the new normal. And they have to find a way to stop it. What that means is you got to get Black folks back into the bad habit of thinking that maybe these white supremacists on the left are going to stop their white supremacist collaborators and partners on the right. And you get them to think that this guy over here, this old white guy with his biracial or potentially Black running mate is somehow going to constitute a difference. What the hell did Kamala Harris do to stop police brutality and racial profiling and the targeting of Black people in California? I can show you plenty of instances where she allowed police to get away with it. Can't show you anywhere she actually punished them. Can't show you where she went on a jihad that she's going to clean the doggone police departments up. There should be a list, an enemies list of police officers and sheriff's deputies and state troopers. It should have an entire list of these scumbags. It's like we're putting cases on all these bastards. You see, if you're actually serious about changing police culture, you got to change who the police are. And you got to also establish that we're coming after you. You're going to wind up in a prison cell. But of course, neither Joe Biden as a legislator or Kamala Harris as a prosecutor or Val Demings as a former cop, none of them are dedicated to that. because they all understand the part that they play in white supremacy, and they understand exactly what the injustice system is about. The laws were not written to punish white supremacists. They were written to target and punish black people, whether you commit a crime or not. Joe Biden certainly understood that. The laws were not about actually punishing crimes. They were meant as a social mechanism for the containment and suppression of black people as a group. That's what it was actually meant to do. And with the white media sanitizing all this and trying to white-splain it away and making sure to put some trusted paid Negro in front of the camera who says, oh, everything the Democrats do, the sun shines out of their behinds, and don't worry about what the Democrats are doing to screw you over. Just worry about what the Republicans are doing, and that trying to play both ends against the middle. And perhaps it went on for a while, but there's a new generation who is deciding, you know what, it's time for a fresh start. All of you old niggers need to go. All of you old bootlicks, you ain't got a damn thing done. So since you weren't improving anything when you were there, we ain't going to lose nothing when you're gone. That's what's happening right now. What's happening is you got this younger generation who is deciding that all these guys got to go. All that matters is results. And this is an entirely new landscape for them to be in. Oh, you think you're going to bring out the golden oldies? We're going to bring out John Trouble-Man Lewis. Oh, yeah, Trouble-Man. We're going to get in some good trouble. Oh, yeah, that's right, Trouble-Man. You're going to get in some good trouble, causing bad trouble for black people. But they thought that was what they were going to do. The 65 to dead demo among black voters, they're not the ones who put presidents in office. You got to galvanize that young black vote. And that young black vote's looking and going, no, you got to step up with our tangibles. But you also have got to make a firm commitment to punish the enforcement arm of white supremacy. We're going to turn the system against itself. We're going to break, and if that happens, you've broken the system, is what you've done. You've essentially broken the system. The system, any system, cannot be operating against itself, cannot be at war with itself. And yet that's exactly what the former slaves are angling to make it do. To make the system go to war with itself and tear itself down with its own hands. This is an existential crisis that white supremacy faces. The former slaves are exercising power over the system. So Joe Biden's realizing that black folks ain't going for the okey doke. And yeah, you got a bunch of these Negroes who have never given a damn about black empowerment, never given a damn about black people, who've spent all their time with their heads up some white woman's behind, or in the case of certain hip hoppers, up some white man's behind. These people have been chasing sexual access with white people of the opposite gender, or in the case of Queen Latifah and Nas Little X of the same gender. These individuals, they're now trying to figure out, how do they sound like us? Well, they're not doing it for the sake of achieving black empowerment. They're doing it for the sake of trying to blunt and short circuit what we're doing. That's what their goal is. How do we short circuit what these guys on the internet are saying? How do we co-opt their message? We're going to sound like them for a hot second. And then we're going to turn it to, well, you need to beat them up at the polls. Ain't that what Killer Mike said? I'm going to start calling him Sucker Mike. Because that's what this dude acts like. He acts like a sucker. So Sucker Mike was out there saying, you should beat him up at the polls. Beat him up at the polls. Got news for you, Sucker Mike. We managed to get laws on the books. We managed to get changes made. We managed to have the police's name turned to mud without a single election. We did it without casting a single ballot. So you can go ahead and take your old con game that Bernie Sanders and the rest of the DNC trotted your raggedy behind out to pull. You can take that mess somewhere else. We have found ways to be effective without voting. So that being the case, we ain't wasting our time with a process that was never meant to give us anything in the first place. No, we've decided we're handling this without the ballot box. And ain't going to be no hip hoppers, ain't going to be no bought and paid for bootlicks, not going to be any more black employees of white corporations, white music companies, white television studios, white movie studios, or white government offices who are going to come out here and try to tell us otherwise. Ain't going to work. The only thing that will work is the very thing that you are determined not to do, and that is to bring us our tangibles. You go ahead and use stubbles and tangibles for us, not for everybody else. Ain't for no immigrants, not even black immigrants. The black immigrants have not been systematically disadvantaged. We have been. That being the case, you will balance the scales to our satisfaction. And as long as you decide that you will defy the will of the black community, then what's going to happen is the streets are going to stay hot. What's going to happen is we are going to continue to undermine the system every way that we can. We're going to continue to make sure that if we're not comfortable, nobody's going to be comfortable. You're going to have white people on the left who figure that they're supposed to be the seesaw. That's the way it works. There's a seesaw. The other guys, they get to have their time in the sun. They get to have their access to the national treasury in the goodie box for a few years, and then it goes in your direction. And, every few years, you each get to have it. You each get to take your turn, and that's how you keep equilibrium. Well, we decide, let's put our thumb on the scales, and one side's going to have it. If the other side decides they want their access to the goodie box back, well, we're going to have ours. Destabilizing the system. Because that's what you do when you're serious about your power. You make it very clear. If I cannot have what it is that I ought to have, then nobody's going to have it. I'll just throw a doggone monkey wrench in the gears. The machine comes to a halt, and that's just going to be the end of it. You will prioritize my agenda, and I have the power to put enough pain on you to make it where you will. And no, you're not going to bring out Joe Biden with his pet Negroes. And no, they're not going to get away with lying. And that's the problem that they're having. They don't have any lies that they can use. Kamala Harris is not going to run away from her record any more than Joe Biden is going to. We've already educated people that when it comes to the crime bill, Joe Biden isn't going to get to say, well, it was actually the states. It wasn't the federal government. Mamie Sanders tried that mess, and you had CNN. We put enough pressure on that Victor Blackwell had to check her. Well, the states were bribed to do so. The federal government paid them $13 billion to change their laws to make them as harsh as Joe Biden's law was. So we were the ones who put that out there. It's a matter of you can't run from the facts. So yeah, these bastards are going to be held accountable. Everyone's going to be made to have to answer for themselves. And what they're finding is they don't have any answers or any excuses. Kamala Harris is not going to drag out the old dusty bones of low-down Willie Brown. He's not going to get trotted out here and say, I'm a black politician, and I'm sure I've had a lot of nice young things come to my office, and I've been doling out favors for years, and because I'm a black politician, I remember racism too. Yeah, I've been a victim of racism too. And y'all should do what I say because I'm a black politician, and I say that I have experienced racism too. So y'all should just vote how I tell you to do. Vote how these good white folks on the right, on the left want you to do, and that's good enough. Notice how both Clarence Thomas and Herman Cain and Willie Brown, and notice how all these Negroes, these black bootlicks, whether they be on the left or the right, notice how they all operate out of the same playbook. They all use the same lines. They all use the same rhetoric, and always for the same purpose. Oh, there may be some minor variance when it comes to what their aims happen to be, what the specifics are. But when it comes to the talking points, they're exactly the same. And you want me to believe that there's some sort of difference between Kamala Harris and the late not so great Herman Cain? Get the hell out of here. You actually think that I'm dumb enough to believe that there's a difference between Val Demings or Bakari Sellout and Tim Scott? Tim Scott, the only Republican member of note who happens to be black. No, there's no difference between these guys. They're all running the exact same con. White supremacy is quite sophisticated. It understands the necessity of coming at you multiple ways. White supremacy understands that you can't have a one-size-fits-all con game. You have to have a multifaceted con game, because there's going to be people of varying ideologies and varying temperaments. And that being the case, you got to make sure you got something that's a little bit crafted for a broader swath of the population. That way you can minimize you make it where even if there are people who are hip to the scam, what'll happen is they're going to have a very difficult time being able to gather a critical mass of like-minded people, because most of the people will have heard the message from white supremacy's multitudes of tools, multitudes of controlled oppositions. And what will happen is you're going to have people out there, even when it's crystal clear what the reality is, they'll be saying, well, we should vote for Bernie Sanders anyway, and we should go with this, or we should go with that. You get political confusion because a lot of people have already emotionally and psychologically invested in one controlled opposition group or another. So when you tell them you're going to have to completely disengage, we have to do a hard reset on the entire political landscape, they're going to be still fighting and going, no, 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 we can get these Democrats to do right. No, no, no. Maybe we switch to the Republicans. No, no, no. Maybe we go with this third group. No, it don't work that way. This is not about reforming the system. White supremacy cannot be reformed. It can only be destroyed. This is about tearing it down all the way to the ground where nothing is left. And then you put justice in its place. What is justice? Black empowerment. That is justice. So no, I'm afraid you're going to have to abandon your darlings on this one. You're not going to be able to hold on to whatever white supremacist controlled opposition that you may have bought into. I'm sorry, but you're just going to have to let it go. Oh, I know that you might feel a little clever with yourself. You might feel a little iconoclastic because you think that, oh, I'm not going with what's on the beaten path here. Here's the problem. If Black empowerment did not present that option to you, then it's not Black empowerment. Sure, you can go ahead and play the game of, I'm going to go with this or that candidate, but here's the thing. If this person did not come to you and take the pledge to your tangible, specifically for you, if they did not come to you and take the pledge, what the hell are you voting for? You're getting back to the same, oh, well, I got to vote for somebody. No, you don't. You don't. Voting without a specific pledge to your tangibles, voting without specific policy promises for you, it's like doing business with someone without a contract. Basically, you're giving this guy money to do contracting on, to do some building on your home. Ain't no contract. This guy can do it whatever the hell he wants or do nothing at all. And meanwhile, you're out of all that money. I would hope that some of us have smartened up by now. Some of us have. The rest are going to become political roadkill, and they should be. We got to thin the herd. There's a lot of Black folks who will be absolutely useless to Black empowerment, and we don't need to be fooling ourselves on that score. We need to be bluntly honest about it. But no matter what the white media tries to tell you, and mostly they're doing this to try to buoy the hearts of the casual racist read white moderates and those leftist folks out there who are desperate to get their turn back at the governmental trough, because that's what it's really about. It's trying to give them some encouragement. But even so, the white media is letting you know they've already looked at the situation. No matter what happy face they try to put on this sad, deplorable situation, they understand exactly how bad it is, and they understand why it is. Joe Biden's Black voter support simply isn't there. And they're trying to figure out, how do we help this guy out without him actually going out there? You want to know what the real reason is that Joe Biden's been in seclusion? It's because he is terrified of having to actually stand in front of Black folks and give some answers. He's scared of that. He's terrified of it. He should be. He knows damn well what his record is, what it has been, what it's always been, and he doesn't want to have to answer for it. So he's trying to figure out, how do I get out of that? I know, I'll just hide in seclusion. I'll let my Black bootlicks, I'll let these Black mouthpieces that I got on the payroll, I'll let them talk. And hopefully, if I go ahead and give people a bunch of happy talk and anticipation, I will say that, I'm thinking about having a Black woman, or at least a woman of color, hint, hint, Kamala Harris. I'm a woman of color as my running mate. I'm really thinking about that, and that'll make their hearts go pitter-pat. And hopefully what will happen is, if we can just get something going. Yeah, if we can just play to the sister girl contingent of Black female voters. Oh, if we can just do that. Our support among Black females has always been stronger than it's been among Black men. And if we can just appeal to them, why, hopefully, if we can just get something going, that'll build some momentum, and we can get some Black folks. It'll be the beginning of getting Black people back on that treadmill to nowhere. That's what they're thinking. But of course, it's not working. And while it is true that when it comes to presidential races, the white media has always had the inside track as far as knowing that they try to create horse races where none exist. They try to make it seem like a nail biter when that's not the case, because presidential elections, if properly marketed, can be big ratings and big business for the media entities anyway. For the networks, it can be big business because you got people very interested in an election that the white media already knows the outcome of months, if not a year or more in advance. They can already tell. They've been through this process enough times where they can already tell. And what CNN's telling you is, yeah, Biden's black voter support, nowhere near as strong as he needs it to be. Hillary Clinton had more black voter support than Joe Biden, and she lost. Now, of course, this problem is eminently correctable. They can fix this. They know exactly what it is that black people are demanding. Do what black people demand, you can get that black vote, but that's the problem. That's the entire problem. This is about getting black people to once again go back to towing the line without giving black people our tangibles. That's the key. You have to keep the status quo intact. You must maintain the status quo. And the status quo is that black people have been targeted for systematic deprivation, primarily economic deprivation, but political deprivation, social deprivation, but mostly economic. Politics, political elections are about who gets what. It's where you divide up the economic pie. It's already been decided that in policy and in practice, black people are to get nothing, not even crumbs. But black people are out here agitating, making the block hot. And black people are shaking the system and making it very clear, hey, the ballot box, we're not even worried about that anymore. We're going to get what we should have, and we ain't going to the ballot box to get it. Don't you know you directly threaten the system of goodies, giveaways, and guarantees the white supremacy must have? Because if you have all these casual racists, read white moderates, and you have all of these white leftists seeing black people getting real tangibles, getting what's ours, I can tell you right now, the fastest thing to kill even the facade, the phony baloney facade of liberalism. You want to make it where liberalism evaporates, go ahead and show black people getting tangibles from the system, because as white people, they understand, well, we want you to have a little bit of sympathy for the black folks. You're kind of being harsh on them. That's as far as the white liberals' interest and well-being for black people goes. It's just a matter of, well, you might want to let up on them a little bit. You're kind of being a little bit harsh. When it comes to actually talking about them tangibles, all of a sudden that white liberal starts talking like any right-wing alt-righter you ever heard. Oh, you can make these liberals become alt-right real quick when you start talking about black people getting ours. You can make them convert to an alt-righter real fast. So that's the dilemma that we've put white supremacy under. That's the corner that we've painted them into. Those are the horns of the dilemma that we have them stuck on. There's no good options here. You're not going to be able to restabilize this system by getting black folks to go back to the old failed habits and patterns. That's not going to happen. And you're not going to trot out any civil rights retreads or any bought and paid for hip hoppers. You ain't going to have any rappers or any House of Representative members or any clown sitting out here going, I spill blood in Selma. No, forget it. That game is played out. And you're not going to have any black mouthpieces, the roly-polies and the Joy Reids and such. You can go ahead and give Joy Reid a show if you want. Hell, you can give her own goddamn channel if you want. She's not going to be able to change this. See, that's the thing. It was deliberate giving Joy Reid a show. You give Joy Reid a show primarily because you're hoping that she's going to be able to appeal to black women in particular, and her job is going to be to get black women back on that treadmill. She ain't going to be talking about no reparations. She's not going to be saying, hey, these police officers would be getting away with harming black people. There needs to be a list of these guys. Doesn't matter if they retire. At the NYPD, you had a slew of retirements about a month ago. And the reason why, as far as they're concerned, they figure that they'll be safe from prosecution if they go ahead and quit the force. If they quit the department, well, then at the very least, they won't get prosecuted because, hey, I'll go work somewhere else, or maybe not at all. But the point is, I'll be safe from prosecution because you can have Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio say, well, the guy already quit, so there's nothing we can do. No, quitting is not going to save you from punishment. There's going to be a goddamn 21st century witch hunt, except we're going to be finding the witches. We ain't going to have to be making any up. No, just because you have quit, good. What that means is we ain't got to worry about the police union trying to get out here and find a way to bankroll your defense. Yes, putting pressure on the system works, but you got to do it the right way. But you got to show the resolve. You got to show the persistence, because that's what Joe Biden, the left arm of white supremacy, that's what they're attempting to do. They're attempting to test our resolve. When you guys said that any person who had been in the police department or sheriff's department, anyone who had been in law enforcement or had been a prosecutor cannot become president, cannot seek high office. Were you guys serious when you said that? When you said that Kamala Harris's record made her absolutely untenable and that you could not stomach her being a high office, did you mean it? They're testing us right now. They're trying to find out, did we mean what we say? And it's still early, but it seems the white media and the Democratic establishment, without trying to, they want to make sure they don't actually come out and say it, because they need, the Democrats are as dedicated to using the injustice system to attack and corral and contain black people as the Republicans are. They can't say you cannot be seeking office if you were a cop or if you were a prosecutor, because these are government agencies too. That's the way that it works. You get to run on the platform of, I was a cop and I locked up plenty of niggers. I was a prosecutor and I locked up plenty of niggers. And we are all dedicated to making sure that black people are constantly under attack. The police will be either shooting black people in the streets, or they'll be putting phony felonies on black people meant to derail your entire lives, because people like Joe Biden will put laws in the books saying that if you've been convicted of a felony, you can't vote, which means how do you change a system that is unjust if you're not able to vote? Well, that's okay. We'll be weaponizing the system against you morning, noon, and night. This is going to be 21st century, or rather 20th century, because that's when the law started in the 60s. Felonies disqualifying you from being able to vote. And both Republican and Democrat states alike enacted these laws. So what does that tell you about Democrats and Republicans? But making sure that black people are attacked every day in every way. That's what we're going to do. And you can be guaranteed, good, casual, racist voter, you can rest assured that when you vote for me, you are voting for maintaining the anti-black racist status quo. When I took that pledge, when they gave me that badge, I took a pledge to uphold white supremacy, to uphold white primacy in this country until death. When I became a prosecutor, they gave me a badge too. That's what Kamala Harris told you. Prosecutors get badges just like the police do. And yes, we will bend every law, break every law we can get away with. We will do every unconstitutional maneuver that we can to make sure that black people are completely and thoroughly under attack 24/7. We're going to continue weaponizing the government against black people and using the judiciary as the primary means of locking black people up or justifying the murders of black people. That's going to be where the rubber meets the road, the judicial branch. Yeah, we're going to whitewash every murder of black people that there is. Every unjustified incarceration, which will be a majority of them, that's going to be justified there too. It doesn't have to be legal, it just has to be organized. So don't let the white media lie to you about what's going on. Joe Biden's black support is lower than Hillary Clinton's. What does that tell you? What it tells me is the message is getting out there. Joe Biden can hide all he wants. There's not going to be any sort of prevent defense going on this time. You're not going to play the game of, I'll just wait the black vote out and we'll let the white media and these black bootlicks tell black people, you've got to vote. We can't have 4 more years of Trump. We just can't. Well, why not? Why can't we have 4 more years of Trump? What is Trump going to do that Joe Biden hasn't been doing for 50 years? Well, Donald Trump, he's not offering you any reparations. What a surprise. Joe Biden isn't either. So it's a distinction without a difference. I'm not going to the ballot box unless I'm voting for something. If reparations are not on the ballot, then I ain't going. If punishing the police is not on the ballot, I ain't going. If a raft of guaranteed government contracts and grants for black people, we're not talking about immigrants, because that's one of their favorite things to do. And they bring in these black immigrants and say, we're going to make sure there's going to be a handful for you, but it's mostly going to be for Hispanics and Asians. And there might be a few contracts for a couple of black immigrants, but that's all. No, It's going to be specifically an entire raft of platforms specifically for those who came out of slavery in this country. We're going to make it where that is going to be the political order of the day. And if you got a problem with saying that, and if you have a problem with taking a pledge to that, then I got a problem with voting for you. This is our moment. It is our moment to show that we can break the back of a white man running for highest office. This white man thinks that he's politically immune because he's got a whole bunch of other white men in the media, white men in government, white men in corporations giving him money. As far as they're concerned, hey, we define what reality is. And if we ignore these niggers, that means that what they say doesn't count, doesn't exist. Oh, these guys are talking, but nobody's listening. Take a look at Joe Biden standing with the black vote. Oh, there's somebody who's not being listened to, all right. But it isn't the black media who's being ignored. It's Joe Biden who's being ignored. And he did it to himself. You see, this is how you bring about lasting change. You do it by making sure that you say what you're going to do, and then you do what you said. We said that if there is no pledge for tangibles on the books, if you refuse to say that you're going to put reparations, cash payments in our pockets, you're not getting the black vote. All the scare talk isn't going to work. Trying to figure out if you can bring out some black bootlick from yesteryear. We're going to take a stroll down memory lane with some do-nothing black politician or some civil rights retread ain't going to work. Oh, I know. We'll get hip hop to be exact. And we'll bring out some black rappers, and we'll bring out Beyonce. And man, you're wasting your money, but that's okay. You're good for it. Don't let these guys con you, family. Joe Biden's refusing to say anything right now because he's scared. And it ain't Donald Trump that he's scared of. It's us. He made a promise to his white benefactors a long time ago that he would maintain the system of white supremacy, and we have made it where he can't keep that promise. And you better believe that when white supremacy is done with a tool, it breaks its tools. Occasionally, those tools are white ones. That's what got Joe Biden all flustered. This is not merely the loss of a political election. What it happens to be is a loss of control over the nation's former slaves and the inevitable political instability that we are bringing about. That's what's really going on here. That's what they're really scared of. If you do not have a dedicated system in place to deprive black people of resources and then to compound that economic deprivation with killings and murders and physical attacks, if you do not have an apparatus dedicated in place to make sure black people stay poor and to make sure that black people stay under constant attack, physical attack, psychological attack, social attack, what have you, then you have no concrete substantive means by which to keep black people repressed. You can't do it. If black people are being abused and harmed, but they got resources, well, it ain't gonna be long before they use those resources to be able to protect themselves. As I've always told you, power is used as a shield long before it's used as a sword. So you can go ahead and harm black people, but if they got resources, you won't be harming them for very long. And likewise, if you deprive black people of resources, but you do not have it where black people are constantly being killed, constantly being harmed, well, they're going to be emboldened to step forward for what's theirs. You will not have a means by which to kill. You don't have a culture and practice of killing those who speak up for black people or otherwise using violence to beat down any would-be uprising that black people make as they come for their tangibles. So you require both. You require the means to make sure that black people are poor and the means to make sure that black people are taught. If you ever try to challenge your oppression, if you ever try to challenge your deprivation, you're going to be killed. And it has to be blatant, and it has to be open, and it has to be in your face so that the message is clear. If people are not clearly being taught that defiance of their deprivation equals death, if they're not being clearly taught that if you fight back against your oppression, you will be killed. If they do not know that they're going to be killed for it, then they're going to keep doing it over and over again. So that's why white supremacy has to be blatant about it. Well, now we're the ones being blatant. We're the ones getting in their faces. And we're the ones making it very clear that if you practice white supremacy, there will be consequences. There will be economic consequences. There will be political consequences. There will be social consequences. We're making it very clear what those consequences are. We're also making it clear you don't have any more preachers to send out to try to dissuade and distract and mislead us. You don't have any more singers and athletes. We are not going to do what they say. They will do what we say. Only reason LeBron James is talking like he's got some sense is because for years, ever since Tamir Rice, we've been on his behind about it. Only reason you've been seeing Beyonce and P. Dimwit pretending to talk like they got some sense, at least on the periphery. They're still not saying the R word. Ain't no talk about no reparations. See, unless you say that 16 to 20 trillion dollar check, then see, they're trying to figure out how to talk about, well, you black folks need some concrete stuff. Well, voting, that's tangible. That's the Democratic line. They got some Negroes out there spouting. Voting is a tangible thing. Really, I got my hands open right now. Where the hell's my vote at? No, the only thing tangible is what I can hold in my hands and pass down to the next generation. What I can put in my bank account, that's tangible. I can't put a vote in my bank account. See, that's when you get serious. That's how you scare the system. That's how you let the system know that you're putting them on notice. That is how power changes hands. You make it specific what it is that you are demanding, what it is that you're coming for. And then you are relentless about getting it. We've been out here in the vineyards for over a decade now. A lot of the fools who used to be out here talking all that chakra crap and talking all of that spiritual mumbo jumbo and all that other nonsense, those guys, they've all gone away. The few of them who are still making a couple of peeps on the periphery, these guys are trying to talk like us, and what they can't understand is why it's not working. It ain't working because it sounds insincere and stupid coming from you. Just like Joe Biden trying to talk about, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. If you don't know who you're going to vote for, you ain't black. Get off it. So family, take heart from what's going on. Do not look for the white media to come up with the admission. That's one of the bad habits black people have. We're always waiting for white supremacy to confess to its sins. I told you a long time ago, that is not how you judge victory against white supremacy. It's not about whether or not you can force them to tell the truth. White supremacy is the most evil institution ever created. It is incapable of telling the truth. What you look for is the sweet sound of silence. And at least where the left arm of white supremacy is concerned, when you see Joe Biden doing all this hiding, you see this man at an undisclosed location. Nobody knows where the hell he's at. The Secret Service don't know where he's at. You've seen more UFOs the last couple of months than you have spottings of Biden. Yeah, when you see something like that, you understand that we have shut this bastard up. He is so scared of having to face up to his record. He's so scared of having to face the black grassroots. He's just terrified. The sweet sound of silence. And we are just getting started.